So let's get started with file geodatabases, chapter 4. So the first step here is to actually build a file geodatabase or create a new file geodatabase. I'm going to connect to my GIS folder now. I'm going to connect to a folder, and I'm going to scroll to my C drive. Yes, I press GIST1, click OK. So I'm gonna double click on my exercises, go to chapter 4 folder, right click and say new file geodatabase, and I'm gonna call that Maricopa County files, looks like. So, and then I'm gonna import a couple of shape files into this. um, I'm gonna right click on Maricopa County files, and I'm gonna click on import feature class. I'm going to click on feature class multiple because I need 2 files, and then I'm going to browse to folder connections, GIST1, data, Maricopa County, and then I'm going to select the files ending the file starting with the file name TGR for tiger. I'm going to add those two, and then I'm going to go with the defaults. I'm going to click OK. So you created a file geodatabase, you imported a couple of files into it, a couple of shape files into it, and I'm gonna also show you, and you get a message saying feature class to geodatabase multiple is successful with a green tick mark. So I'm gonna double click, go into the GDB, right click, go to import, click on table single, and I'm gonna go to the same location, and I'm gonna import census dat dbf, and I'm gonna call the output as census dat, and I'm gonna go with the defaults, and for the rest of the options click OK. So it looks like I got my census dat table too. So my Maricopa County files GDB is populated with the files I need for this exercise. So the next step is to use our catalog utilities. So how do we do that? What do we do here? So I'm gonna preview each one of these files. When you actually click on these files individually, you sort of see a little preview here. If you want to see the full preview, you can click on the preview, but like the preview tab here. So let's look at the tracks. It looks like this is and you can go to the description tab and see that there is a description about So since my R catalog crashed, I don't know what's going on, but I'm gonna go back to my chapter 4. I'm gonna open my Maricopa County files GDB. I'm gonna continue previewing the other files. I can click preview, I can click on description. So the description is what's causing this to fail. So when you click on description, maybe you have better luck with this. I don't know what's going on. Maybe Windows 8 is not so compatible after all. But chapter 4 Maricopa County files, I'm gonna preview my table and see that there is some Hispanic white population income, per capita income white, is that what it is? And there is like some race information and geo ID fields. Great. Okay, I'm gonna go back to my Maricopa County, and then if you actually, I'm going to show you this little thing. What you're looking in the preview tab now is the geography, but if you want to look at the table behind it, you can select table from the um, bottom, drop down menu sort of a thing. So so rename feature layers. How do you do that using our catalog? I'm going to go back to my contents, and we're gonna rename this CCD, which is actually cities, looks like. I'm going to right click on it, click on rename, and call it cities. And then you can census dat has to be renamed to census tract data. So I'm going to rename that to census tract data. And then the last thing is to rename the tracks to tracks. So that's how you do it. Right click and rename, and then copy and delete features. The thing to do here would be to right click on cities, copy that, and I'm going to right click and say paste and see what happens. So it gave me a warning saying there is already a file and it'll be called cities_1. So I said okay. So it copied. It should have the same data. If you look at the preview, they're exactly the same. Obviously, it's just a copy. So I'm going to go back to my Maricopa county files GDB and click on cities and click on delete. And it says, do you want to delete this? Of course I want to delete that. So that's that. Again, if you go to the C drive and go to SRF Press, GIST1, My Exercises, you see that this is a folder, and that you can't actually see any of this, any of the city names or cities or census tracts or anything like that. All you see is a bunch of tables, looks like. So that's not really, you can't really see anything or preview any of this stuff. So that's why you always need to use our catalog to manage your geodatabases. So I'm going to right click on this and go to properties and see how big this is. This is a teeny tiny geodatabase of 1.21 MB on disk. So right now it's called read only because we are accessing it, sort of a thing. Oh, maybe that's what it is. Oh, I see what's going on. So if you ever have this kind of an issue, maybe there is a fix to this. I'm going to right click on repress properties. I'm going to uncheck read only, click on apply to all files and folders, click OK, and see if that helps in ARC catalog. So maybe that will help me not crash, so to speak. So I want to see the description. Oh no, it's still crashing. So maybe that's not it. Anyways, let's move on to compressing a file geodatabase. So what we need to do is go back to ARC catalog, and then on the left panel, I'm going to right click on Maricopa County. I'm going to say, I'm going to right click and go to file administration, and I'm going to say compress file geodatabase. This might be slightly different on your machine, but if it is, don't worry, you might have just a compress file geodatabase as a direct option. So I'm going to click on compress file geodatabase. So once I do that, I'm going to go with the default options. So you remember it was 1.21 MB before. Let's see the file size right now by going into a Cerepress GST1 My Exercises Chapter 4. Go to Properties. So looks like it's 948 KB right now. So it dropped about, I don't know, 300-400 KB, something like that. So that's what you get with compression. But again, this thing is unreadable, so to speak. You can't work with this because this became a read-only file right now. So you gonna have to go back and say uncompress file, and I'm gonna go with the defaults here. I'm gonna click on OK, and uncompress has been finished. So excellent. So our 4.2 is done. Let's move on to 4.3. So I'm gonna go back and open a map document. I'm gonna go to my C drive, and then I'm gonna scroll to my Cerepress GST1 maps tutorial 4. Oh, there is no 4.1. So you need to create a new map document that's looks like that's one of your turn. Sort of like a challenge, exercise, so to speak. I'm going to add the data that we just created. I'm gonna map to my C drive, just PC, Cerepress, GST1. Okay. My assignments, my exercises chapter 4. So this is the data we want. So I'm gonna add these layers one by one, and then add the track data too, and then I'm going to change how they look. As you can see, when you have list by drawing order tab, in that view you can't really see the table because this is not, the table doesn't have any features. But when you go to list by source, so then you can see the census tract data table, because this is by source, this is not by drawing order sort of a thing. So whenever you add a table, the view automatically switches to this one right here, which is list by source. So if you want to switch back to the actual view, you can go back and change the order. You can't really move your layers here. This is by source. So if you need to drag and drop, drag layers up and down, you have to do it from your list by drawing order view. So for the tracks, I'm gonna use a light blue outline, and for the city is going to be on top of my tracks, and they're going to have a hollow black outline, just like in the book. So that's that. I'm going to save this map as Cerepress GST1 My Exercises Chapter 4, call it tutorial for 1. And now let's modify an attribute table. So delete unneeded columns. How do you do that? Right click and open the attribute table for tracks. So once you open it, let's look at all these fields. Looks like FIPS state co. Looks like this is all one field. Looks like that's the FIPS of the state. It's a sort of like an identifier. I don't really need that. So what I'm going to similarly track 2000. So we can delete these fields. We don't really need them. So what I'm going to do is right click and say delete field. This is only to show you that you can manage these fields. This is how to delete fields. I would highly recommend against deleting any of the data before you would need that or not, because once you delete this stuff, it's gone. you know what I mean, it's gone and there is no way of recovering this data. So if you don't need something, what I would do is go to right click and go to properties. So right now I don't need tracks field, so I'm going to hide it in a way. So I'm going to go to fields tab and I'm going to click on uh, check off tracks. So now I don't see it, so that it's not so much of a hindrance, or the table looks clean enough for me right now. So instead of actually deleting it, you just hide it, which would be a better option for me. But since the book says delete, just to show you how to delete fields, I'm going to go ahead and do that too. So if you want to bring that back up, you can do that, obviously. And as you can say, the warning says it cannot be undone. So click on OK. Tract ID. So modify a primary key. So it also says that you can delete some fields from fields from the cities layer, namely ID, county, MCD, and subname. So once that's done, let's modify a primary key. Um, So what we need to do now is to make sure the data is ready to be joined. Let's open the census tract data, which has to be joined. So I'm looking at this table and I realize that this one right here, the GeoID, looks like that's the field we need to actually use that's a unique field that we need to join to the tracks data. So let's open tracks data and look at the unique field here. Looks like we have a little bit of an issue here because this field has 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 11 um, 11 letters or digits, because this is a number field. This is a string field. These are letters, so to speak, although those are numbers. But in this we have 14. We looks like we have a much bigger GID, but looks like the first 5 is the state, and then is the US, and then our numbers start actually from 040 130 sort of a thing. So what do? We need to create a new field in the census tract data. So let's go to make sure you're in the census tract data table. Click on table options and click on add field. Call it SFID, STFID, and call it and make that a text field and make the length as 11, because that's all we need. You can have more, but the thing is, it's a good thing to actually control this, because if you only have 11 as the length of your field, um, it will help you control the file size a little bit. It's not much of a difference. It doesn't make much of a difference now, but going down the line, if you work on big data, that would be useful. So I'm going to right click and click on field calculator. So we know what we need. We need to edit GeoID in a way that we get the 1 2 3 4, the last 11 digits from the left, right? So there are a couple of functions, a couple of ways to do it. One would be, as the book says, go with the mid. Um, uh, you know, the mid function, and mid function would help us do this. I'm going to click on GeoID, double click on GeoID, use comma. So since the since the position is at the 8th position, let's look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The 8th one is where we want to begin. So I'm going to type in 8. And then from then, it's actually 11 characters long. So I'm going to type in comma and type in 11. So that's how you get your STFID. There is one more way to do it, which I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to right click on field calculator, and I'm going to say, when you right click on field calculator, again, it is essentially overwriting the existing values. So what I'm going to say is, since we need the last 11 digits from your right, I'm going to use right function, and I'm going to double click on GeoID and make it 11. And okay, it's essentially spits out the same result, but it's always good to know one more additional formula, so to speak, or function. So calculate a new column. We need to, in the census tract table, add one more field, add field, and call it R RNT. So what we are trying to do is create a ratio field for Native American per capita income to the white per capita income. So let's change the field type to float, looks like, and click OK. So right click. So the first thing is we need to make sure that the denominator is not 0. So let's see if there are any zeros. Per capita income of whites. So looks like we have 5 zeros. We need to avoid this stuff. So how do we do this? One way to do this is, otherwise you'll get an error. Essentially, when you run the formula, you're gonna get an error. I'm gonna show you what the error would look like. So I'm gonna right click on and go to field calculator for R not white, and I'm gonna click on clear. So I'm gonna click on PICNC nat divided by PICNC white. So that's the ratio field we need. So when I click on OK, it says there was a failure during process. Check the geoprocessing results window for details. So we already know what the error is. The per capita income white, these values are zeros, and a denominator cannot have 0 in the formula. So I'm gonna say, essentially we need to select all this and switch selection, or we can say select by attributes, and per capita income white should be greater than 0. Click on apply and close. So now we are only calculating the values that have the denominator greater than 0. So I'm going to run the formula again. So I'm going to use the same formula, click on OK. Now it works, obviously. So now we can close the attribute table. So we can do the same thing for, it's asking you to repeat the same steps essentially for the ratio, create a ratio for Hispanics and whites. Hispanics. It's going to be a float again. Click on OK. So I'm going to right click on field calculator. So I'm going to click on percentage of Hispanics divided by percentage of whites. I'm going to keep my selection, because if I don't, I'm going to run into some errors again. So those are the two fields I need. I'm going to close my table now. And moving on to 4.4. So let's, we are ready to join these two tables. So what we need to do is right click on tracks, click on join, click on join again, and make sure you are selecting join attributes from a table, not join from another layer based on spatial location, which we will get to in the next exercise, I believe. So join attributes from a table and make sure your STFID has been selected. Since we already have the same field named STFID from the census tract data, and since census tract data is the only table we have in the table of contents, it's going to automatically select those two. So I'm going to go with the default options and click on OK, and make sure my tracks look the way I want them to look. So before, you can see all you had was these fields from the tracks, and you can, all this stuff is from the table we just added, the census tract data table, where we calculated RNAT white and RNAT Hispanic white. So yep, that's that. Okay, I'm gonna leave this table right now and move to 4.5. Now we need to create a centroid coordinates in the table. So how do we do this? We know how to, we already saw this in the presentation, so to speak. I'm gonna open my tracks table. I'm gonna add a couple of fields. One is called X. And then it's gonna be a add field double, and I'm gonna click on OK. Scroll to the end. I don't know why it's populating some stuff here. That's a little weird. Add field, call it Y, call it double, click OK. So I'm gonna right click on X. Something is not right. Oh, that's because I'm in cities. Okay. Oh no, I am in tracks. I'm gonna do something here. I don't want to take a chance, so I'm going to delete these fields that I just created, and I'm going to export my data to Maricopa County files, call it tracks with data, just to be safe. So that way I'm making this join a more permanent join. You'll see the difference. When I go to, the difference is that when I go to selection and attributes, and I'm gonna go, when I open tracks with data, you can see that the field names all look just fine. But if we open tracks, as you can see, whatever table it belongs to, the field belongs to, it'll have a prefix of that name. So census tract data dot object id dot geoid dot rnat white. So the reason it's doing that is that this is not a permanent join, and that the data is still referring to the table itself, which we are not too crazy about, and it could lead to some issues. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna remove my old tracks layer. So I'm gonna use the new tracks layer, which has a permanent join. Now I'm gonna right click and open attribute table, add a field called X, and I'm gonna make it double, and add a field called Y and make that double too. So why we are doing this is to make sure that we are actually we need to create a centroid coordinates table. So that's why we are doing this. I'm going to right click on X, and I'm going to say calculate geometry. I'm going to click on no, don't warn me again, because I know that once I'm outside an edit session, I cannot change any of this stuff later. So there is no undo when I do this. So once I right click, it's gonna say, hey, what do you want to calculate? It's automatically picking up that it's since we call the field X, it's gonna pick up on that and say, hey, is this the X coordinate of centroid? Yes, it is the X coordinate of centroid. So I'm gonna click okay here, and I'm gonna right click on Y, and I'm gonna click on field geometry, and it's gonna say Y coordinate of centroid. Make sure that's selected and click OK. So those fields look good to me. So what we need to do is export this table, not the features, just the table by itself. So I'm gonna click on this, and I'm gonna click on table options, and I'm gonna export this, and I'm gonna export this as tracked centroids. Track centroids. Click save. And I'm obviously saving this within the Maricopa account as GDB. Click OK, and I'm gonna add that to the map. So let's make sure the track centroid does have my X and Y's. Yes, it does. Awesome. So what we need to do is create a feature class from XY table. How do we do that? So we're gonna go back to our ARC catalog and double click and open Maricopa County, and right click on track centroids and click on create feature class from X and Y table. Since we already have X and Y's in the table, it's going to be pretty easy. So here I'm gonna for the coordinate system of input coordinates, I'm gonna click on that. I'm gonna say coordinate system, click on import. I'm gonna go back to my Maricopa County folder. I'm gonna select the tracks because these are the track. So essentially I'm saying just to maintain the same GCS North America 1983 projection, which actually belongs to the source file. I'm gonna use the same thing here, and I'm gonna save this under my exercises chapter 4. I'm gonna call this file as census tract centroids. And I'm gonna go with the default options. I'm gonna click on OK. So once I did that, I see that the census tract centroids have been created. Let's preview it. Wow, that looks good. So I'm gonna go back to my map document, and I'm gonna go to catalog, and I'm gonna drag and drop. Do you see census tract centroids? That's because this view has not been refreshed. So what do we do? Right click and say refresh. So once I do that, census tract centroids comes right back. So I'm gonna add that, drag and drop that on the map, or you can use the add button. So the next step is to symbolize a choropleth map. What do we do here? So for the tracks layer, I'm going to go to properties, right click, go to properties, go to symbology. I'm going to click on quantities here. For the value, let's select population Hispanic. Population of Hispanic. And it's going to be normalized by total population. So population total. So this way you are getting what looks like a percentage of population, percentage of Hispanic population. Click on quantile. I'm going to select 5. And for the break values, you can use the default values. I'm going to right click on this. I'm going to click on format labels. Since this is actually a percentage, number represents a fraction, numeric options, number of decimal places is just going to be 2. Click OK. OK. Apply. So now you can classify this as 5%, maybe 10%, 20%, 50% and 100, so that they're close enough to the break values, but you are actually modifying this to make this more readable. So you'll have a map like this, but for the census tracts, what you're going to do is right click on the census tract centroids, right click on it and go to properties and click on quantities and use graduated symbols. Um, and under the value, just use per capita income total. And for the template, if you want to change it to something else, you can do it here. Obviously, I'm gonna see um, if there is a 3D symbol or not. So it looks like there are a couple of 3D symbols. None of them I'm too crazy about. I can use a red spear probably. I don't like it at all. So I'm gonna go with like maybe like a blue, so that it pops out a little more, and change these symbol size from 2 to 10, and format labels. Number of decimal places is going to be 0. Use 1000 padding, and um, if you want, you can change these values to quantile 2 if you want to, and then change these values accordingly. Maybe 10,000, 20,000, 25,000, 30,000, and so on. Click apply, and okay. So now you have a map showing, as you can see, what the trend you need to observe here, obviously, is that the percentage of the higher the percentage of Hispanics, the lower the per capita income. And that's sort of the observation you would want to make with a map like this. So let's move on to 4.6. So let's open 4.6, which is the map document available under maps. Open. So I already saved my map document before, so if it pops up, if it is asking you to save your stuff, please do so. In this we are going to, in this exercise, we are going to aggregate data, so which means we are going to use spatial joins. So let's what I see here is a bunch of businesses and car beats, which looks like police car beats probably, and where they are, the car routes for the police. What I'm going to do is right click on business layer in table of contents, and click on join. And here I'm going to spatially join car beats, these businesses to car beats. So what I do want is each point will be given the attributes of the polygon 2 points. Oh, looks like these are polygons. So essentially, we want this to be saved in chapter 4, businesses spatial join. So you have an error because there is no geodatabase called businesses spatial join. So you're gonna have to select shapefile. You have to save this as a shapefile. So I'm going to click on save now. Click on OK. So let's see what happened. Right click on businesses, open attribute table. All you have is name, address, and SIC. And when you actually open the businesses spatial join, you have all these new fields. So what you are getting here is the sum of all the attributes of the field in which it falls into. We are getting all this information essentially within our uh, business information. So we have area, we have perimeter, car beats. So it looks like we have car beats, the total number of car beats per zone, and I don't know what car beats I is, but and then the beat and the section looks like. So we got all the information attached spatially to the business point data. So I'm going to close this now. I'm going to right click on business spatial join and drag. Okay, SIC open attribute table. I'm going to drag this SIC so that I can see this whole thing, although I am looking at the whole thing. As you do know, SIC is nothing but it's a standard industrial classification that is used by US Census Bureau to classify private sector businesses into, whether it's a retail or a public it could be a school, hospital, pharmacy, whatever it is, it'll have an SIC code of its own. So by knowing what SIC code is what, you'll know what type of business it is, obviously. Which is useful. I'm gonna click on table of contents, click on list by source view. I'm gonna right click, there is a table, looks like. I'm gonna open that. Oh, looks like we have the SIC codes and not just the code but the code description too. So we need to somehow join this table back to the attach so that we have the SIC descriptions next to the businesses. How do we do that? Right click on spatial join, businesses spatial join layer, click on join. So I'm gonna go back to my join attributes from a table. I'm gonna select my SIC code, and from the table it's automatically selected SIC because that's the only table available, and I'm gonna select SIC code here. So I'm going to click on keep all records, and I'm going to validate join, see what happens. No matches found. So maybe that's because I have address chosen, not the SIC code. Let's see if the validate join has a better luck. Yes, it matched every record, 100% match. Oh, actually 9253 of 9352 records matched. So it didn't match everything, but it did match most of it. So I'm going to go with that, click OK. And I'm going to save my map document. So what we need to do is export a subset of this data. So I'm going to click on selection by attributes and make sure businesses by spatial join is selected, and scroll down, and I'm going to select SIC code description. Oh, actually just need SIC code. So join actually SIC code is equal to get unique values, and I'm going to scroll down and find 5812 and 5813. 5812 or SIC code is equal to 5813. So I'm going to click on verify, click OK. I'm going to apply and see what's selecting. Okay, that's good. Let's make sure we have 457 records selected. That's excellent. And I'm going to go to only selection view, and I'm going to see what kind of businesses these are. Oh, looks like these are eating and drinking places. Awesome. So what we need to do is right click on business spatial join with the selection intact. I'm going to click on data, export data, and I'm going to make sure I got the selected features selected, export only selected features, and I'm going to save this as a shapefile and call it eating drinking places. Eating and click on save, click OK. So I'm going to add that to the map, and I'm going to go back to my table view, and I'm going to turn off my business spatial join because all I and the businesses, and we can actually remove the business layer if you want, by the way. And I'm going to save my work. So we're going to do a special second set of extraction, which is select by attributes, and here we're going to use a query for SSE description, and I'm going to actually, let's clear this SSE description, and I'm going to use the function like, because I don't know the exact name. It's something auto, so whatever has auto in it, I need to have that. So I'm going to select my select percentage, which would mean that percentage auto percentage within quotes. It's not auto, that's auto. So what it means is any word that might, have auto in it would be automatically selected. Let's click on verify to make sure it's the case. Click on apply and click OK. And let's turn off the eating and drinking places. Make sure we have our selection. So yeah, general automotive repair shops have been selected. Excellent, excellent, excellent. I'm gonna right click on data, click on export. I'm gonna export that as auto motor vehicle places. Click on OK, add that to the map, and let's move on. Count polygons by poly ID. So how do we do that? Open attribute table of eating and drinking places and scroll to the right and click on the column heading beat, and then right click and say summarize. So in the summarize dialog box, we got to do a couple of things here. Specify output to, I'm gonna output this as eating drinking places count .dbf, and select dbase as the output format. I'm gonna click save, and then I'm gonna click OK. So I can obviously open this map and see what's going on. So essentially, for every beat, the number of beats have been counted. It's a summary table of the beat route and how many times the total number of beats have been counted. So that's very useful information. The total number of retail business points for each car beat polygon has been created. So as we know that this is a total beats, but what we did right now is create a summary table which has retail business points in each car beat polygon. So that's good. So let's join a count table to polygon map. So how do we do this? I'm gonna close this map. I'm gonna right click on car beats in table of contents, and I'm going to click on join, and I'm going to select beat to see. Now we need to select eating and drinking places count table, and I'm going to select beat. I'm going to click on validate join. So we have 41 records matching, so I'm going to click on OK. So once we have that, I'm going to symbolize the choropleth map. I'm going to right click on car beats, go to properties, go to symbology. In the quantities, I'm going to use count beat for the value, and then I'm going to use 7 classes, and I'm going to go to classify and use quantile, and click on apply and click OK. So what we have here is, in theory, a total number of let's turn this off and turn the auto vehicle places maybe. So essentially this map is showing you the places of places of high crime prone business concentrations. So maybe you can increase like car beats within, increase the number of patrol cars in these zones, so to speak. So I can go to properties, I'm going to go to labels, I'm going to click on label features in the layer and beat count beat, and click on apply. Actually we are going to label the beat itself, looks like. Car beats, apply. This is the one. Yep, use the beat as the label feature and click apply. So that's the map. You save your work, and that's chapter 4 completed.